Hello everyone, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Now, for the last video of 2024, I want to ask you the question, before you play your first game of 2024, you have to watch this. And the reason why is because it's simply going to elevate your win rate out of this world. And you're probably wondering, what is it? And I'm about to say, it's Rayquaza and the Rayquaza fight. I'm going to give you a step-by-step analysis on how you should approach this fight as 3 different types of characters. And if that's what you're interested in and you're looking forward to this part of the video, of course, keep your butts glued to your seats, get your drink, and get ready to enjoy the video. And if not, hit the like button, hit the sub button, and of course, leave a comment of what you'd like to see instead. All right, guys, let's get right into it. And let's break down what can literally change every single game of Pokemon Unite, and it's the giant Rayquaza. So let me add him here in the middle. Let's zoom in a bit on the map and have a good understanding about how we're gonna play this. So I said that at the start of the video that we're gonna look at 3 different types of characters, and I'm gonna look at them in 3 categories. Carries, and under carries, you have anyone that deals major damage. So it goes from Gardevoirs to a Blastoise in the carry role, and then maybe it's like a Speedster. So the attacker, central, top laner, whatever. And then you're gonna have the other category, it's tanks. And I think on the tank category, let's look at it like characters like Umbreon, Trevenant, like Slowbro, these things. And then on the final side, we're gonna have supports. I have no room to write it, but you guys know what I mean. And in supports, we're going to think about characters like Clefable, characters like Koopa, and characters like Blissey. Right, okay. Now that we have all our characters and our ideas in mind, I'm going to show you 3 different ways to play the Rayquaza fight as these characters to effectively increase your win rate by at the minimum 10%. But more often than not, you're going to find you're going to be able to win games which are literally unwinnable before, and even when you're against better team players, like better players that probably have better mechanics, you can actually take them down if you use these steps. So let's get right into it, and we're going with the carries, right? So, okay, when we look at carries, we'll just have Zoroark here. I want you to think about Rayquaza is in areas. So this is the main area most players hide when they have no vision. And this is like what we call the choke. So we just label a choke there. Then what's the next area, Suluwu? We have the top side, which is all that. Usually speedsters hide there. Sometimes their team groups up there, but this is like the top side, I like to call it. And then we have like the top and the bottom of the pit. Bottom of pit. Okay, so let's just get rid of this. And now we know this is choke, this is top of pit, this is top side, this is bottom of pit. And then of course the enemy has the choke. This is Pixel Bush, but no one really calls that. Pixel. And then we have this L, the 2 L's. So now that we have all the areas, where do you think Zoroark or like characters in the carry role have to go? There's a few places, but I'm gonna go and let you guys have the liberty of pausing the video and having a think about it for yourself. Where are these characters gonna go? So I'll give you 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. All right, now that you've had a good think about it, where are they going to go? It's quite obvious. So if you're going to have a Zoroark Speedster, you want to play on their side or threatened flanks. So it's going to be the top side. It's going to be their L. Those are my favorite positions to play characters like this. And if you're playing characters like a ranged mage, like a Gardevoir, you're probably going to want to play on your choke. Or maybe even on your top side, which is a little bit riskier. But you have like these 2 positions to interchange between. You could even, I see some players go to your L, which is fine, which you can interchange between 2. But I feel like more often than not, you're going to be safer on your top side of the map, or like at least any 3 of these positions is quite safe. And now if you're going for a top lane tank carry, it's the same thing. You don't really want to group up too much for your team unless you really are going to try to 5v5 them. All right, so now that we know where to stand, and these ideas are going to stay all the same throughout the video. So these are all going to be the same positions. Now we notice that I haven't said the top of pit, and I haven't said the bottom pit, and I haven't said the enemy choke. You want to stay away from these areas until the fight gets ready, right? So keep that in mind. Now, the way you're going to play like a character like Zoroark is, as I said, you're looking for these looping flanks coming into these areas. Like you're looking at that kind of opportunity. So you're going to pinch them here, you're going to pinch them here, you're going to pinch them here. And it just depends on where you're standing, but you want to make sure that the enemy feels the threat of your potential to flank them, and at the same time, you're kept safe. So as you can see, the Zoroark in the top bush here, it's not going to get engaged on, it's going to have a good, easy game. Sometimes here it's going to be a lot more aggressive. However, you need to be ready and willing to back off and realign yourself to find a better flank. A flank is all about surprise, and if you're not going to find a surprise, don't bother doing it. All right, great. So now that we're looking at like a little bit how to play that character, I'm going to go bring you back to the mages because it's quite important to understand both of the roles when we move forward. So now looking at the mages, I want to look at Gardevoir and say, okay, where does Gardevoir want to stand? What does it want to do? You want to cast spells down the corridor, trying to hit the tanks, which generally will stand in Pixel Bush and the Choke, because they're trying to defend their own carries. Now, when the tanks are flanking, like from this area or this area, you can back off into your own jungle, or you can back off to your pad. Now, if we just zoom out a bit, you can back off to the pad, right? I think this is very effective to back off to the pad. You want to look at like coming to this pad more often than not, especially if it's still alive. You're not really going to be able to run to top, and also top side has a lot of dangers that we're going to explain later. But of course, now you're going to have to stick around for that. But see, more often than not, you're going to want to go to this bot side. So bot side is very important for mages. You want to make sure you remember that. Remember to peel back. You don't need to run into the enemies at the start. You can wait until they've used the cooldowns and used all their abilities, and then you can look to be a little more aggressive. All right, great. So now that we know the mages are going to cast spells and people coming in front of them and run back, and we know that the flankers are going to really collapse into their teams, you guys sort of see the action of the game. We add a tank in here. We can imagine this Blastoise happens, and Blastoise push forward, Gardevoir can push up, and then now Zoroark is looking to collapse on them when they push back there. So you're seeing, okay, great, Suluwu. We now know that like if we have a fully working team, we're going to win the game every single time. What am I going to do in solo queue? All right, here is the big tip. You need to be the one to find these flanks, but you also need to make sure that you're doing your job. Don't find the flank. If you're the Zoroark and you have no team, don't go in. You need to isolate them. So, all right, let's go and break it down. What am I talking about now? This whole new concept, right? Thrown at you 100 miles an hour. What's isolation? So what we're trying to do now is sort of separate one player that you can solo kill. Yes, I know, it's very greedy. But this action is going to mean that if you're like, you know, a little bit better, or if you have a surprise attack on them, you're going to be able to take one player down and more often than not, either go and immediately convert to a cap or immediately convert to a rip. Now, the rip is a little bit more dangerous, but the cap is generally free, especially after they've lost one and your team is not fighting yet. If your team is fighting, go help the fight because it's going to be a 4v5, and more often than not, you're going to be able to win it if your team is somewhat playing the game. All right, so now that we understand we have to isolate, we're looking to pull someone away. How are we going to do that? You can go for the cap. Now, of course, don't go for caps when, well, what do you think? Okay, I'm going to give you 3 seconds again to think about why we don't go for caps. 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's quite simple, right? If they have heavy ripping compositions, so characters that can really damage Rayquaza quickly, you're not going to want to go for that cap. That's going to be absolutely worthless. They're going to get rid of Rayquaza in 1 second. Now, of course, in solo queue, there's a little bit more liberty to go for these caps because a lot of the time, teams are unwilling to completely flip the Rayquaza, at least in the Western servers. In the Eastern servers, you want to be a little bit more careful of that. They're going to go and just rip that thing into shreds. So you need to be staying around the pit. But think about it like that, right? So you have that option if you make that kill play. So now I want you to go and think about that flank idea again. So once you take down this person here, let's just say, and you go look for, you can still keep looking for the flank because more often than not, they've fought your team and they're pushing in here. Now you can get a flank from this angle, from this angle. I want you to think laterally, right? Be creative, look for the flanking opportunities, take them when they come. So, okay, all right, now that we sort of understand how we can win as a speedster, you're not really trying to hit this Rayquaza, you're trying to fight the enemy team, you're trying to create diversions, and you're trying to force the scores on the map. Hitting the Rayquaza as a speedster is going to give you a very low chance to win if you have no help. So I'm giving you the best chance to win at the lowest cost, right? We play low risk, we go for the isolation play, we outplay our opponent, and we go for the cap or the flank onto the enemy team. Don't hit Rayquaza unless it's essential. What does essential mean? It's 1 minute and we're down by 200. If it's 1 minute and we're down by 200, what's the negative 200? Yeah, perfect. Just hit Rayquaza. You have to go. You have to go, 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 and you just pray that someone hits it with you. And if they take it from you, okay, well, too bad. But that is how to make a heads up play. So now that you have sort of a win con in your mind, okay, if it's 1 minute and there's no way to, like, we're down by 200 and, you know, everyone's up, maybe it's time to hit Rayquaza. Be open to that option. You can go for a cap, but it's a bit risky. All right, there you go. So that's how we play Speedsters. Let's bring back the Gardevoir, right? So we sort of understand that now the enemy Speedster, if they have one, is going to look to pinch you when their tanks come in. That's what they should do. If they aren't doing that, you can play very, very aggressive, or you can play very back, and you will never get threatened and you win the easiest game of your life. These are the ranged characters like Venusaur, like Mew. These characters can take amazing amounts of range, and if there's no pressure onto them, they can literally sit back here and deal devastating damage to anyone in this corridor, which will eventually lead to some sort of Rayquaza flip or pressure. So how are we going to win these characters in solo queue? Let's just say your tanks abandoned you, there's no help at all. I want you to be able to be confident to be in this bush, confident to be in this bush, and confident to play from the top side. Now, the top side is the scariest one. The reason why the top side is the scariest is because you have the flankers who are more often than not immediately going to be here. This is the flanker paradise, right? You don't want to give the flanker the benefit of the doubt to just sprint on top of you and kill you for nothing. You do not want to be caught in isolation play. So you want to make sure you play your teammates, even if they're being a little bit goofy. You're going to be able to find more plays more often than not with your team because you offer that range damage to whittle away their team. Now, of course, you have to understand that if they have big all-rounder or tank threats, sometimes you need to play a little bit back away from them, but that's when we leverage onto this tower or we leverage onto this tower. All right, so that's your options as range carry. And now, the way we're going to do this is it's a bit opposite. Don't look at the score so much. Range carries do not look at the scores. We look at fights and Rayquaza. All right, so that's a big difference. Fights and Rayquaza. So Rayquaza, and how do we get fights? We want to debate the team. Now, this, of course, debate, new term. It's like a big bait. Try to mention it like this. And the best way we're going to do this is we're going to poke Rayquaza if we start doing damage. So let's just say an enemy Umbreon, let's just grab Umbreon because it's a very common character, right? He runs in this way and then loses half their health, so 50%. They're 50% health after you chunk them down. Let's start running away a bit. You need to just go and start hitting the Rayquaza if your team isn't doing it already. Make sure you're conscious of your flanks. Be aware of this position. Be aware of this position. Be aware of this position. Enemies can flank from all sides, right? And if you're standing here hitting Rayquaza, you need to be very aware. More often than not, what's going to happen is they're going to look to instantly collapse. And so like the Umbreon's going to come back. Someone's going to run for here. Someone's going to run from here. You're going to like, oh shit. My bad. Sorry. Bad word. And what's going to happen is I want you guys to be creative and clever in this video. You need to be better than the opposition to win the game. And that's simple. If you know where they're coming from, you can beat them. You can beat them down. And the best way to do it is if you know that they're coming from these angles, you need to retreat down this way. No, this is bad retreat angle. You got to go through this way. Retreat down this way. But I want you to be able to cast spells and to hurt whoever's running in through here because you're going to catch two players. And if you have teammates, more often than not, someone's going to die on their team and you're going to create yourself a huge advantage. So that's how you win as ranged characters. Look at the beautiful amount of spacing you create for your team. You hit the Rayquaza, lure in the top laner, lure in the tank, and lure in any other damage dealers, and then you group them all up and cast spells from over this wall. And then you've just basically created the perfect suit for your team. Being able to bait the opposition in, making yourself the primary threat, and then disengaging, pulling away, letting go of all attachment as you drop orbital bombardment on top of their heads. It is the best way to win. All right, great. Now that we've gone through that, let's go and talk a little bit more about this tanker bruiser POV. Instead of a speedster, we're more of like a frontline fighter. So how are you gonna do it? Once again, it's a similar playstyle to the speedster. You want to wait in these bushes like a little bit of a flanker. But now you're looking to engage and create the fight. So instead of catching them, you're looking to just catch them a little bit before the big flank, right? You're not expecting to flank them necessarily because sometimes when you leave your team, they're just gonna get wiped. But you're more often than not looking to actually go and expose what they have already. So you wait for damage in your team. And if you can't wait, once again, you have two different ways to win. Now tanks and bruisers, a little bit less on the rep side, but it's better than going and full fighting. Full fighting is something that you need to do if your team is actually damaging the enemies. And if your team isn't damaging the enemies, it's just a no-go. I would suggest the #1 play you have to do is damage your Rayquaza to lure them in, and then go for the full fight if you can. If you can get it, if you can get picks onto the back line. Now, this is a bit different than the Speedster, right? Which I was offering isolation and then score, right? We're not like looking to isolate here. We're looking to jump onto the back. I know it would seem that the Speedsters do the jumping on the back the best, but you will be very surprised what a bruiser can do. And those of you who do play bruisers, you know what I'm talking about. When you Buzzwole grab the Venusaur and punch him into oblivion and then grab him again and slam him on the ground. When you go and play Aegis Slash and you sneak into the backline. When you play Garchomp and you have 5 stacks and you start slashing away at their team. When you play Blaziken and you get to charge your entire Blaze Kick in the bush and then hit someone with Overheat, right? Like, this is the pinnacle of these characters. You need to flank onto the backline, and the best way to do that is hiding. Tell your team to damage your Rayquaza. If they don't damage Rayquaza, you have to start looking actively to create the nuisance that your team will have to act on. This is a little bit less chance to work others outside of your team, because if your team isn't hitting Rayquaza, the enemy team, if they're winning by a lot, like, it's going to be rough. But if you are winning, this is going to be easy winnings. Look at the backline, remember your targets, and take them down. You're just going to win easily like that. Look at this bush. Look at this bush. Look at this bush. And then you just wait. Your target's going to be around here. Oh, I should use a different color. Let me use a different color real quick. But yes, your targets will be around here, around here, around here. And when you can grab these targets, like look at this triangle, right? Look at this triangle. If you can ever jump into that triangle with minimal threat, you're going to end up winning the game. So that's how I want you to think. And you're going to find a lot more opportunities like that. As I said, you can look for scores after if you have no rip available. And if you have rip available, you should just full rip the Rayquaza. Be confident. This is what's going to cause you to win games. If you're not confident with Rayquaza, you're going to lose games. If you don't full hit it, if you don't trust your team, yeah, I know it sucks to trust your team, but you're going to have to do it to win. All right, great. Now we got like the tank carry out of the way. We have supporters and tanks. And I guess I'm going to talk a little bit about these two because they're very important roles. Now, how does supporters play the team fight in the Rayquaza? Well, it's pretty simple. Now, we're just really floating around these carries, right? So let's just say this X circle is where we're going to put our supporter. Let's say Hoopa. You know that you have one carry here, one carry here, one carry here. Let's just say in this situation. Well, I'm going to want to sit around here. So like you're almost in the middle of a triangle, right? You want to stay in a triangle distance of all of them. So you're willing to help whoever's proactive. Supporters have to take a backseat in ranked because naturally, if your teammates all suck, I mean, it's going to be a hard game. But you need to be ready for whenever one of your teammates excels their opportunity to exceed their potential, well, then you're there to back them up and help them out. So I want you to mentally make a note of where your carries are and just start making this triangle, right? This triangle, as I said, it can move. Let's just say that we put one carry here, one carry here, and one carry here. You might move into the middle of them. You can support all 3 of them like this. Be aware. You need to be the most aware when you're a supporter player. And when you do this, as I said, use this triangle system. You can go for backcaps. Supporters can go for backcaps only if you can't score, you can't finish Rayquaza on time. Otherwise, unless like if there's a fight and you know the fight was all over, you're the last one alive, go for the score first, unless you can bring your team or do something to help the team rip the raid. Otherwise, you're looking for these scores. The only character I would recommend to really score, because otherwise you're going to lose a lot of health for Rayquaza unless your team is alive. If your team's alive, we could full rip it. All right, good. Now, going to the tanks. I guess this is probably like the most simple one out of them all, right? But the tank generally will stand in this pixel bush and just look to walk up and pressure and force the enemy team into corridors. If you aren't already doing this, you have to start doing this without getting taken a lot of damage. I know it sounds impossible. It really does. But it's very simple. Just juke the abilities. Don't get in range of Glaceon Ice Shards. Don't get in range of Inteleon Liquidation. Don't get in range of these sure hit moves that are just gonna chunk your health out. Hide in the bushes and slowly creep your way up. If they cast spells, if they look at you too hard, walk away. You don't need to lose your health bar for no reason. Keep your cool, keep your calm, keep your health. And when you do all those, you're gonna end up winning more games because you're playing tanks. They're strong. They're so strong at grouping and crowding enemies. Make sure to make your enemy aggravated. If your team gets a good engage, you follow up. If you find a good engage, you go for it. More often than not, if you find a good engage in ranked with a tank, you're gonna be able to find someone who is seeing the same thing and can help you. And you're gonna win more games because the tanks don't win games on themselves. Tanks set up game wins, they don't win the games. And when you look at the setting up of a game win, that means that we have to set up the fight, we have to set up the trap. So when we set up the trap, how are we gonna make them get into a bad fight, right? Like, so Trevenant, if you can group the enemies up into this here, this here, this here, these are all S tiers. Like, these are all game winning situations. You just need the teammates around you. If you have no teammates around you, remember that and maybe cool the jets on a big engage. This is literally all you need to know as a tank. Don't go back capping unless you 100% need to score and it's 20 seconds left. You are the only one who can control the pit. You have the biggest health pool. You can single-handedly stop rips. You just need to be aware, have your eyes on, make sure you don't fall behind in this sense. All right, great. Now that we got it, we have a good idea how we should try on all 3 characters. This will literally take your win rate out of this roof. Rayquaza is the most important objective of Pokemon Unite. Probably the most important objective that we've ever had in this game, even more than Zapdos, because Zapdos only gave you a short period to score, whereas Rayquaza literally gives you a score shield that can continually score, gives you unstoppable in the score. It's too much, right? So I want you to think about all the things that you can apply and learn from this video, and let me know in the comments what you're gonna do in your next game. Because your next game before 2024, your next game in 2024 is gonna be predicated off your gameplay today. I want you to learn these things and come back to me when you are dominating in 2024. I want everyone to have a wonderful year. There's lots of good things ahead of us. I'm really excited for the channel. I'm so glad and so proud of so many people coming and enjoying the content, and I hope to continue to produce this content at a high level. Now, of course, if you're enjoying what you see, well, once again, best way to let me know is spam the like button, drop a comment, tell me what you like and what you want to see, and sub to the channel if you haven't already. I know a lot of you are subs, so a salute to you all. I hope you all have a wonderful 2024, and best wishes from me. Okay, cheerio guys, have an excellent day.